solving their problem. So it's quite funny, but successful entrepreneurs must really understand the problem that the people are facing. So you, part of the journey of during this hackathon, will be not only having the idea, not only thinking about a product, but at a certain time, jumping to the customers, trying to understand the customers, the problem of the customers, and based on this, you will assemble what we call a value proposition. And then this value proposition will be a solution. So instead of product, try to systematically use the word solution in order to let you think about that you will be successful if you bring a solution to a real problem. So I still don't have my slides. Yes. So let's come back to the definition of a value proposition. As you can see, we use those type of canvas. Maybe some of you have seen those type of canvas. In the middle, there is the value proposition. Value proposition is clearly a bundle of value that contribute to resolve a problem for a specific customer. So maybe you have heard about the pushing and pulling of the of the market. People of my age, when I went to university a long time ago, I'm 54, I've been learned to push products on the market, to develop a product in a lab and push it in the market with advertisement. People at that time were not caring too much about the customers. You know, there was a growing demand and the people wanted to consume. Today, it's not the case anymore. Large companies are present on the market, but you, potential startup, willing to come up with the new solution, you have to look for niche where people are not satisfied, when people have some unmet needs, unmet envy. This has great consequences for you during this hackathon. One of these consequences is that you have to be more in love with the problem than the solution. And this is quite difficult because you joined the hackathon, you want to change the world, you're very excited by your idea, but at a certain time you must cool down, put the feet back on earth and be more in love with the customers and its problem, you know, than to be in love in the solution. And this is the reason I engage you after talking about solution instead of product, to also talk systematically about your beloved customers. And be careful, no ID. Resist to the contact with the customers. And this is the reason at a certain time, you have to get out of the building, you have to leave your Mac or your computer and start to talk with the people you think have the problem you want to solve. And at this condition, you will be able to build something that matters. Let's come back to the process of this hackathon. The first element I've been describing for you, it's what we call the customer discovery. It's mean based on the ID, I made an assumption. My assumption is that solution, but this solution will only be a solution if it solves the problem. So back to the problem, customer discovery, identify where the customer are, start talking with the customer, asking educated question. If you want to ask educated question, go quickly on the MOM test, the MOM for mommy, the MOM test, and they will explain you how to ask question. If you immediately come and propose to the customer the solution, you will bias the discussion. First, spend some time talking about the problem, discovering the problem, see how they try to solve the problem today, and then eventually on a second stage, try to talk about the solution. At this stage, you are a researcher in a lab. The customer is your guinea pig, and you must develop a lot of capacity to observe, to ask questions, to analyze the problem of the customers. And then we come to this first job of this hackathon. Your first job is the fit that you have to demonstrate between a problem and your solution. And as a candidate entrepreneur, your first job is to make sure that there is a perfect match between the problem you decide to tackle and the solution you have assembled. And this, we call this the problem solution fit. So basically, there is this notion of customer development process, and we suggest that you use a canvas. I sent you a canvas yesterday, a lean canvas, and based on this, you put a lot of post-it, and when you come up to something that you like, take a pictures, but generate alternative. You can never tell me, Bruno, it's the best value proposition if it's not the best compared to other options. So based on this, you use those canvas, but most of the post-it, each of the post-its are in fact assumptions to be tested. So that's the fit that you have to look. So when you have a business model canvas that you like and that it seems to create value for the customers, you take it and back to the customer to ask question and talk to as many customers as possible. A little trick that I suggest you to do is to first talk to 3 or 4 customers, explaining that you are in the middle of a hackathon. So you are not trying to sell them something, you explain them the context, and you ask them question in order to refine the value proposition, in order to test each element of the value proposition. And when you have done 4 or 5 qualitative interview, then you can start to make a poll on Facebook or Google in order to be able to test your assumption and to be more quantitative. Nothing will replace the quantitative, but at the condition that you ask good questions. So how to ask good question when you're testing your value proposition? Most of the time, I tell my students in the Startup I coach that I forbid them to start to write a question. Your canvas and your value proposition in the beginning are based on assumption. So you make hypothesis, you make assumption. In order to check if there is a fit between your solution and the problem of the customer, start to list some key assumptions, that are really the deal killer hypothesis of your project, 3 to 5. And for each of them, then based on those assumptions, try to write question. And each of those questions must confirm or infirm the hypothesis, the deal killer hypothesis that you have put. And at this condition, you will start to collect interesting material. Most probably, based on the material collected from talking to the customers, you will have to fine-tune or eventually pivot your ID and pivot your value proposition. This is normal. It's a normal gymnastics. It's a normal flexibility of a startup team. So don't hesitate to pivot. Don't hesitate to change your mind based on the real facts that you have discovered on the field, talking to as many customers as possible. So this is the reason you might iterate and come up with another canvas based on what you learned. And then at this stage, I like to say this because 30 years ago, we were making fun of sociologists, anthropologists, because we were considering that they were far from the entrepreneurial spirit. Also, today, the one that are able to better understand the customers is the one that develop an anthropological approach, a sociological approach, a psychological approach to understand how the customer are living, what are the problems they are facing, and then you understand how you can, ease this problem, remove the burden, facilitate the job to be done. At this stage, what I use and what I advise you to use, it's the persona theory of Jung. When I'm making hypotheses on my value proposition and my customer segment, I give a name to my beloved customer. I name it Charlotte or Frederick. I put a face. I try to represent in my mind, who are they, how they think, how they feel, what are their fears, what create joy for them, trying to understand the job they're trying to do. I try to put myself in the shoes of the customers. But this will never replace the contact with those customers. But at this stage, it really might help. So let me come to another very important notion, is the notion of the job to be done. If I want to understand my customer, and I insist so much that you have to put yourself in the shoe of the customers and see the world with their eyes, that it's quite interesting to see the world as people constantly during the day trying to do jobs. They're trying to do jobs for their employers. They're trying to do job for themselves, belonging to communities, looking good, buying some stuff to make to cook at home for the family, and so on. If you want to very well understand the customers, try to first understand and perfectly understand the job they are trying to do. If you are thinking this way, you will realize that when they are trying to do these jobs, there are some gains that helps them to do this job. There are some pain. And if you are able to understand the pain and remove part of those pain or leverage on the game, probably it will help you to assemble the solution. But let me give you an example. And this comes from Clayton Christensen, professor at the Harvard Business School. If I tell you, just imagine a young mother. She promised the kids to go to Euro Disney. She takes the kids. One of the kids is 4 years old. The other kid is 6 years old. They go to Euro Disney. They wake up very early in the morning. They take the TGV, the train, to Euro Disney. They spend the morning. They have pizza at lunchtime. And at a certain time at 4 o'clock, the mother is buying a milkshake for the kids. I ask you, what is the job of the milkshake? What is the mother trying to do by buying this milkshake? I don't have a lot of time, and with the webinar, it's hard to have a discussion about this. But the milkshake is not to feed the kids. The milkshake is 20 minutes rest. So you might see at something to eat, and you might think, okay, it's tasty. But after this long journey, the mother would like to have 20 minutes rest, and by giving this milkshake to the kids, sucking this little straw, with the viscosity of the milkshake, it's 20 minutes rest. But then we could say, okay, she could buy a pizza. No, the pizza, she will have to help the kids to eat the pizza. And the pizza will dirt the clothes and so on. So she will not have a rest. By sitting in a restaurant, giving this milkshake, and she doesn't care about the flavor of the milkshake, she will take 20 minutes rest because the kids will be busy. They will be independent, they will shut their mouth, and they will be giving the mother those 20-minute rest. The study of Clayton Christensen did exactly the same thing with the people. McDonald's wanted to improve the sales of the milkshake. They made focus group, it never worked out. But at a certain time, they stayed in the restaurant and outside the restaurant and realized that 50% of the people buying milkshakes were just buying a milkshake in the morning before 8 o'clock, and then we're leaving. And then they start to think, what is the job that the people are trying to do? By asking the right question to the people, they realize that those people had a long commuting, a boring commuting, and they needed to be occupied. But they needed also to have a kind of breakfast that would block their stomach until 11 o'clock. And it must be convenient. So it appears that the milkshake is beating any of the other solution that could be the bagels, the Snickers, the banana or whatever. Question of convenience, you have to peel the banana and so on. I want to just highlight that if you understand the job that the customer is trying to do, it's much easier for you to be able to provide them, to come up or to assemble or shape a solution that is answering this problem. One of the tools that we are using is the value proposition canvas from Dr. Oosterwalder. If you see on the right side of the screen, you see this customer job. And I hope that by explaining the milkshake, I shock you and I enable you to see the world differently, trying to step in the customer's shoes to understand the job they are trying to do during their day, and then observing what are the pain and listing what are the pain, what are all the burdens they face when they're trying to do this job, and then identifying the gains when they're trying to do this job. This helps them to understand the job. This is a job of observing, analyzing, and learning. And when this is done, you might pick some of the game, might target some of the pain, and decide to assemble a value proposition. This is the concept of the job to be done. And during this hackathon, try to spend some time on this important step to understand what is the job to be done of the customers you would like to bring a solution to. So if you think about this job to be done, it's the anchor point for where and how to create value. It means that behind this job to be done lies the potential value that you can provide to a customer. So it's your job to perfectly play with the jobs to be done of the customers. Let me draw your attention now on a concept of customer pain. When we talk about the problem of the customer, the beloved customers, we use this job of customer pain. And we see ourselves, entrepreneurs, as a drug, curing the pain of these customers. But there are two customer pain. First of all is the obvious customer pain. When there is an obvious customer pain, the customer is aware, he can quantify the pains, he knows he has the pain, and most probably is looking for a solution already. On the other side, you have the latent customer pain. It means that you, as an entrepreneur, have to push there and say, hey, look, it hurts, your shoulder hurts, I might have a drug. And then I realize, yes, indeed, my shoulder hurts. What are the difference for you as an entrepreneur during this hackathon? You better know if what you're trying to solve is a latent customer pain or a obvious customer pain. Why? If it's a latent customer pain, what you will have to do is to invest more in marketing, because you will have to explain the pain to the customer, quantify the pain. It will take time, it will take money. It means that the sales cycle, the time you will take to sell to the customer, will be longer and then more expensive, and you will have to invest more in marketing. So try, if possible, to look for obvious customer pain and not for latent customer pain. And guess what? The market is not homogeneous. If you take the big market and you tackle a problem, your job is to search the small niche where the people have an obvious customer pain, and I will come back to this, okay? I send you the lean canvas. At this stage, it's probably the best tool that you can use in order to map your project. As you can see, it starts with the problem. What I like very much is that it forces you to think about the existing solution. If there is a real problem that you want to solve, the customer hasn't waited for you to solve it. So he's trying different alternatives. Those alternatives will be your competitors. So it's interesting in the first block on the left side of the screen that you perfectly understand not only the problem, but the actual solution. Then you can start to describe your solution. You can start to list the different type of value, and I will come back to the unique value proposition. And there is another very interesting block on the right side of the canvas. It's the early adopters. As I was telling you, the market is not homogeneous. There is a sort of ghost curve with people having more the problems, and this is the market that you have to identify in order to start start attacking the market. Another quite interesting element is the unfair advantage. This is a really annoying block. By with this block, question you and challenge you on the fact that regarding the alternative, what specialities, what specificity, what differentiator do you have that brings you an unfair competitive advantage towards the other solution? Let's define now the value proposition, and that's the definition, and I would like you to pay a lot of attention on this definition. It's a bundle, so there are many values of tangible, perceivable values and intangible values. If you want to understand how much money I want to take in my pocket to give you for your value proposition and to thank you, you better understand how I will quantify and evaluate all those values. So what matters, it's the perception of the customers. So when you use Canvas and you put value proposition, it's not your value. It's the value perceived and evaluated by the customers. One of the reasons that you better always use the words of the customers and not you take words. At this stage, once again, you step in the shoes of the customers and you use the words of the customer. This is the definition of the value proposition. Tangible, intangible. Intangible, we all know that we have two brains. We have a right brain and a left brain. Left brain is analytics. Tangible values will talk to you, the analytics part of your brain. On the other hand, there are plenty of other intangible value as brands, design, customer approach, the message, all those values, or eventually sense of belonging to a community. All those values, intangible value, will also be important for the decision process of the customers. So your job is not only to focus on the tangible value, but also to understand how your value will create positive feelings, positive perception by the customers, and how you can leverage on those in order to capture more value or increase the willingness to buy of the customers. Quantification. If you try to sell me something, I will try to have my willingness to buy, and the price must be under my willingness to buy. And I explain you, I'm ready to pay 120 euro for something. If you price it at 100, fine, I have the impression I'm capturing 20 euro value. The more you are able to quantify your value by understanding the customer, the more you have a perception about the value that you create and how far you can go on the price. But at the same time, if you are able to quantify the value in your commercial message, you will come to me and tell, Bruno, you have a problem, fine, great. Look all the value we are providing you, and then I will make a very quick calculation that the values are under the price that you are asking me. This is the reason it's absolutely indispensable that you talk to customers, that you test the value proposition with customers, or you create a little model in order to demonstrate that you are creating a value that you are able to quantify. When I have a lot of fantastic techies having ideas, very often they put a lot of features and they try to sell me the features. And then we come to the Swiss knife syndrome. The Swiss knife syndrome, I put a lot of blades in my Swiss knife. The customer has to pay for all the blade, but the customer will not use all the blade. So pay a lot of attention about how you compose your value proposition in order to put only value that matters for the customer. This is just possible if you test the value with the customers, if you interact a lot with the customers. Let me give you the example of RailNova. RailNova is a box for diesel locomotive, because it's the story of Christian. Christian has done an MBA in London Business School, and then he decided to create RailNova because he joined a leasing company of locomotive, and his customers were really badly managing. And he said, my job on earth, my why, is to help those companies to better manage their fleet of locomotive. So if you see the why on the bottom of the screen, focus on revenue generation and increase productivity on cumbersome but critical tasks. His job is to help his customer to save money in managing the locomotive. Then you have the what and the how, robust hardware. So if you ask Christian, what is your business? He will not tell you I'm a platform, I have a robust hardware. If he's a good entrepreneur, he will tell you, my job is to help companies managing locomotives to decrease their costs and improve their productivities. So look how Christian is explaining this value creation. Here, he has 5, as you can see, 5 value pool, 5 types of value he can create for the customers. And look how he quantified. He takes on the left side of the screen the 5 value pool, and he calculates what is the value creation for 100 locomotives. And for each of the value pool, is able to quantify the value that he's creating for a company using his solution. So Christian is not, RailNova is not, producing software. Here, you understand the real value of RailNova. So clearly, make the difference between what you hope and what you demonstrate by your test by being able to quantify it. So this is what we call the lean entrepreneurship. And I would like to read you, first job in the lean entrepreneurships, it's make educated assumption. Don't dream, build assumption and understand what it means for the project. Second, imagine cheap, quick tests in order to infirm or confirm the assumption, and do this with the customers and with experts. Then, remember, you are a researcher in a lab, test, observe, analyze, learn from what you have tested with the customers, and then pivot or go ahead. All right? This leads us to test and validate with the customers. You do research of the lab, and you have to understand the pain, the gain, and the value. We talked about it. So it's time to test. Basically, during this hackathon, you should have 2 tests in order to be able to come to an acceptable risk. The first type of test is the POB, proof of business. Will the dog eat the dog food? Will the customer, my assumption that the customer has a problem that they can solve, when I propose my solution, will the customer dive on it, be happy with it, be ready to go in his pocket, give me money and say thank you, or the customer will not be interested? Okay, that's the first test, the proof of business. And you better to do this, the proof of business, before building a very complex solution, spending money, time, motivation in a solution that nobody will want. So speak to the customer as soon as possible. The second family of tests is the proof of concept. Yes, we are able to deliver the premises that we made to the customer, and then that's the technical feasibility about building the solution, about delivering the solution, and so on. Those are the 2 tests that you are supposed to do as soon as possible in order to demonstrate that you are not far from being a business opportunity. So no business plan, no value proposition resists to the contact with the customers. At this stage, you are still a researcher, so it's time to go now to the market. As I told you, the market is not homogeneous. There are some niche in the market that are not served by the big companies. Most of the startups are starting a niche. Facebook started a very small niche and then extend the niche. So your job is study the markets and then identify the small sub-segment of markets where you will have the easiest sales because those people have the problem and trying to solve it. They are conscious of the problem. So at this stage, I would like to stress on my checklist. So I propose you this checklist for this hackathon because I know that you want to go very fast. So first of all, can you present the problem, customer pain briefly? It means crisp, credible. Credibility comes because you tested, that you have spoken with the customers, very concrete and quantifiable. The second element of the checklist on the customer pain is it a bag? A bag means a big, hairy, audacious goal. It's an expression used by American people to say, hey guys, you tackle a big problem, a big issue. And if you succeed to solve a big issue, there is a lot of value creation. In this seminar with the COVID, of course, there are so many important and big issues for the society. Then we come to, can you measure, quantify the problem, customer pain? And you have to do this in mirror. Be able to quantify the problem of the customers. Imagine the cost for customer not having a solution, and then see how you can quantify the solution that you bring to the customers. By bridging the gap between the problem and the solution quantification, you have an idea about the value that you can capture, and as a customer, I have an idea about my return on investment. If my problem cost me 100 euros and your solution come up to 70 euros, there is a 30 euros the value that I can capture. I will see your solution as a return on investment. Or other element, do I have studies about this problem customer pain? When you try to analyze the problem customer pain, you should do things. Studies, high level, talking with experts, that's macro. But it's not sufficient. You must do macro and micro. Micro is talking with customers. So don't hesitate in your pitch to explain to how many customers that you had the chance to speak in order to demonstrate that you are really an expert. You became an expert of the problem, knowing very well the customer segment. And then, how can I demonstrate that this problem customer pain has been validated and quantified on the field by real life tests? It's the discussion, the interaction you will have with the customer. So this is the checklist for the customer pain. You're supposed to have done this or to do this by the end of the weekend to be a champion of the customer pain of you beloved customers. Then the next checklist is about the solution. Can you briefly present the solution to solve the specific problem customers pain and demonstrate that it works? Demonstrate that it works. It's demonstrate it works because the customer is buying the solution. The customer is begging for the solution. And on the other hand, we are able to deliver. Can you list and measure, quantify the tangible value from my solution? You should be able to have the list for the tangible and intangible value perceived by the customers and using the words of the customers. Can I demonstrate that those values are not open-faced, but on the contrary have been validated in the field? It's very easy, you know, to design graph about the value. And one of the question I immediately ask is, who has valued this graph or the different types of value? Is it you, and then you, the entrepreneur, and then it's open faith? Or no. Those values have been quantified by the customer. We have met on the field when we exposed our solution. Then, you know, it's much more credible. Otherwise, it's theory. And in the world of theory, everything is always fine. So do you have an example of a customer who used a solution and where I've measured the tangible and intangible value? This is the notion of business case. This is too short in an hackathon to be able to quickly go and talk to the customers and really made a study about how we use the solution. But try at least to be able, by talking to this customer, to evaluate with him, you know, the value of the proposition. Then we come to the customer segment, and this is very, very important. Bill Olet from MIT is talking about the beachhead market, the first market that you will tackle because it's the easiest. I told you that's where the people have a obvious customer pain. They are begging for a solution. They are already searching a solution. This means that it's much easier for you to attack this market and to have a quick grow in this niche and eventually jump to the other niche. The ideal thing is, of course, to find a niche that is growing and you grow at the same time of the niche. That's ideal. So you have here some of the question. Do you perfectly understand how the people are solving the problem? No. Can I give the criteria to opt for this specific segment? Very often, startups are telling me, Bruno, this is the best market. And I say, why? It's the best compared to what? And then they haven't made a serious analysis of 2 or 3 markets. Critical thinking is important. Free will also. So it's your free will to choose a market. So try to evaluate several types of market. And I gave you some criteria to pick up the right market for your solution. The time to market, how much time does it take to come with a solution ready for this market? Adoption rate. Not all the segments have the same adoption rate. Some are more traditional than the others. Sales cycle. How long will it take to sell to the customers? If you take people begging for a solution, it will be shorter. Access to customers. Do I have access to a community of people having the problem? It will reduce my sales cycle and decrease my COCA. COCA is the cost of acquiring customers. Average ticket, potential upsell, margin. All those are criteria to pick up a market, a first market instead of another one. If you have been successful, I would like to know what you have done. By the end of this weekend, you can, for example, have letter of intent. People writing you emails, say, I want your solution. Tell me as soon as it's possible for me to use it. Do I know the size of the market? Compound average growth rate, is this market growing? Is this couple's problem segment sustainable? And you might have a problem. In the criteria of the pitch tomorrow, people will ask you the benefit of your solution during the crisis and after the crisis. So this question refers about the sustainability on the market on the longer time. And then, of course, are you really able to deliver the solution? Do you think that it's realistic to be able to deliver the solution? And then by the end customer segment, can I explain briefly what are the substitutes? Very often, you are so excited by the solution that you say, okay, I have no competition. Usually, when I start the discussion with a startup and they say, we have no solution, I stop the discussion. I say, sorry, if you think like this, there is always competition. And if there is no competition, there are substitutes. And substitute, it's not exactly how you do it. You know, But it's another way to solve the problem. And very often it's what the people are facing the problem. If they are facing the problem, they try to sort it out by assembling a weak solution, but it works. It works. Then you come with a very nice solution and say, okay, but it's expensive, and I will stick to my weak solution because it's a. So this is the reason. Most of the time, you must consider competition. There surely are some competition. If not, there are some substitute, and sometimes the substitute is just using the actual a weak solution that the people facing the problem have developed for months or sometime years. What I like very much is that when you are able to design curve with the reason to buy, so on the horizontal axis, you have all the reason to buy. Those are the values. And then that you are able to compare the values, the curve of values, when you ponderate the importance of the value in the decision of the customers. And then you start to be able to compare your value proposition to the competition and the substitute. When you have this in front of you, you really understand where you make the difference. And this is also a way to avoid the Swiss knife syndrome. So I spent 38 minutes to talk to you about the value proposition. I would have dreamed to spend a day with you with a lot of example, a lot of exercise, but this is not possible. This is what we call a crash course, a very short webinar. So think about your beloved customers, talk to them. Be careful, be scared by your hope and faith. Remember the idea is not value. What has value is a business opportunity. Be obsessed by the value. Forget about talking about the customers. Think about the value you create for the customers. Therefore, think like your customers. Put yourself in their shoes. See the world with their eyes, in order to better understand their problem. And then, based on this problem, assemble the best value, avoiding the Swiss knife syndrome. And if you tell me it's a value proposition, you should be able to quantify this value proposition. How do you do this? By going back to the customers and confronting the solution with what they think about it and how they evaluate. And the customer is always right. I wish you the best for this hackathon. Work hard, sweat a lot, have fun. You do a fantastic job. I think all the society is thankful for the solution that you will bring tomorrow. I'm convinced that not only the researchers are creating value, but also entrepreneurs are taking the technologies, and often it's not brand new technology. Sometimes, most of the time, it's mature technology in order to invent solutions to solve the problem of the world. I wish you the best and have fun, and looking forward to see what you will come up. Thank you very much.